And finally, Rob, the Proteas winning the one-day series against New Zealand. So they couldn't make it 5-0 this time, but nonetheless a good win. Number one ranked side in the world again. And now onto the tests. AB of course goes home, and obviously a sort of change in tactics and personnel. First of all, what did you take from the ODI series win, and what are you anticipating for the Test series?
I think the really pleasing thing, Nick, was that they effectively won a final, because it was 2-2, of course. So almost ideal practice for both teams, for both the Black Caps and the Proteas, to play that effective final at Eden Park from a 2-2 situation. The fact that South Africa got over the line quite convincingly, quite comfortably in the end, a real feather in South Africa's cap. I mean, it really has been a glorious summer for South Africa. We have to doff our hats to the Proteas. They've played well in just about all the formats. I don't care too much about the international T20 at this stage, but in ODIs and Tests, they've been really terrific. You mentioned, of course, the Test series starts imminently in Dunedin, so very little turnaround time, few changes of faces. But I'd still be thinking, South Africa, even a lot of New Zealanders will probably be acknowledging that South Africa will go in as the slight favourites. I say that with a little bit of care, because in New Zealand conditions, you're never quite sure what you might get. You might get some blistering heat, you might get some real frigid cold, especially for the first test, being in Dunedin. Not quite sure what to expect of the surfaces. I don't think there'll be that much carry, or not as much as we saw on some of the drop-in pitches during the ODIs, when our pace attack really enjoyed the sort of the bounce and the carry. But just that ODI series went really, really pleasing. Let's not underestimate it. New Zealand had won, I think it was 8 ODI home series in a row, including 3 against Australia, before hitting the Proteas. So that gives you some indication of the merit of that. You said obviously it wasn't a 5-0. We're not going to win every series 5-0. So a 3-2 still incredibly pleasing. And lots of areas of the game that are looking, in a very good space for the Proteas ahead of the Champions Trophy. As AB de Villiers said afterwards, he believes that they are primed now for a good assault on the Champions Trophy. The only drawback, of course, is that it's one of those dreaded ICC tournaments. So somewhere along the line, you just have to sort of hope that there isn't going to be one of those dreadful sort of banana peel incidents, or a flashpoint of some sort that we're not expecting. But just on paper, South Africa looked very good, and will be, whether we like it or not, installed among the favourites for the Champions Trophy.
And interesting what you say, that the 5th was essentially a final, and which the Proteas managed to win against the team that knocked them out of the last ICC tournament.
Yeah, I mean that was also putting that ghost to bed, really, because we know how just you could see the devastation in the faces and the tears of those Proteas players. It was probably the biggest disappointment of their cricketing lives in the cases of a number of those Proteas players, what happened at that World Cup semi-final. So to then go back to Eden Park and give the New Zealanders quite a good thumping in a decisive ODI. Of course, they would still have swapped results any day of the week, to have rather won that semi-final than the final of a bilateral series. But let's give credit where it's due. They got over the line. A little wobble early on, when I think we lost 3 of our top order quite quickly, and you sort of thought maybe this is going to be one of those really dramatic, low-scoring games. But Faf du Plessis, super cool. David Miller started, cranking it up, hitting it out of the park, and then the game was done and dusted. No complaints, and the Kiwis were also magnanimous in their praise for the South African effort.
Okay, gents, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.